melts metals.
Melts metal.
Trump melts metals.
अरे यार, this is turning out to be another
We are live. We are live. We are live. We are live.
live and kicking. Sir, what's happening? Nifty.
Yeah. Recovered from the lows of the day. बाद में वापस अभी नीचे गया. मैंने last half an hour देखा नहीं है.
It's IT is down
नहीं, but the Nifty is what? 0.5, 0.6 or more?
0.4.
हाँ, तो recovered from the lows of the day.
Yeah.
First day of June.
First day of June. I mean,
June jitters.
देखो FI positions turned net short, right? थोड़ा. So and these global geopolitical tensions, especially after what Ukraine has done yesterday, the Ukraine's Israel moment, right? So that's what people
Not
say.
Israel. Pearl Harbor. It was a Pearl Harbor moment for Russia. For Russia.
Maybe that.
मतलब going deep in and doing it.
नहीं किसी ने ये भी बोला था कि वो जो इजराइल ने जो पेजर मोमेंट किया था वो आई थिंक यूक्रेन ने कर दिया विद ड्रोन्स एटसेट्रा अभी who knows, but the limited point being that
No, and it's coming a day before the peace talks actually.
yeah, so I don't know what but it does kind of disrupt the
Entire.
geopolitical equation, if you will, and therefore does it give a rise to crude pies and therefore do foreigners turn a bit more wary for the very short term remains to be seen. But अपना internally सब अच्छा है यार. I mean GST codes को GVA GDP तो चलो
8%.
GDP तो चलो ऊपर था, but GVA which is the real barometer of growth, right?
Yes,
As
6.8% Q4.
as our dear ex-colleague Ira Dugdal used to say, look at GVA, don't look at GDP.
GDP.
So, or as Vishy tells me as well, so many times, right? मैं तो GVA.
You shouldn't look at the Q4 GDP numbers because it didn't have subsidies. That's the reason it was showing 7.4%.
Also back-ended a lot of government capex,
yes. which came in.
Right? So, but GVA was very strong, and therefore internally things are looking okay. If Pranjul said 75 basis points, Sonal Verma today said 100 basis points.
Listen, I was saying 100 basis points anyway.
मैं तो बोल ही नहीं रहा हूँ.
He's shifting goalposts now.
I am not.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what
Pranjul and Sonal are saying.
Yes, exactly.
So I was saying Sonal is saying 100 basis points.
Sajid, you are not an economist.
I'm not.
I'm right now.
Unfortunately,
That's why he's making money.
If you
Dude. The point is that you have a 50 basis point target. I was saying Sonal has 100 and you are saying Pranjul has 75 basis points.
I'm right now saying that the view on the street is so moved towards easing in India, independent of what's happening in the world, right? Globally, for example, people are saying that at 5% odd, the yields are compensating for the historical low return of the bond market.
Yes.
Because if you're betting on 5% yield, you are anyways getting 5%. So, if bond portfolio का return अभी आया 5% yield आ रहा है, that is what you want per se. But there is a counter view to that that 5% yield is because US investors are now betting on US not growing and they're moving their money out of US into other markets, and which is what probably led to the inflows, right? The Herald van der Linden HSBC report spoke in the last 1.5 months. India and Taiwan have been big beneficiaries of net inflows into from global investors.
I was looking at the CT report of inflows which comes on a weekly basis, and that was talking about how ETF outflows are happening from Japan.
Japan होगा?
हाँ, $9 to $12 billion happened in last week alone from ETFs.
नहीं, जो last week होगा. Until May 20th, inflows into India were rock solid.
5% hit करने से पहले rock solid था. उसके बाद there has been outflows which is now going going into the US fixed income and other treasuries basically.
Yeah, so maybe that happens. So difficult to pencil in what will happen in the very short term, right?
Yeah.
Plus this week there are no cues except for geopolitics.
No, there are a couple of good cues which is coming in from India, right? From India and geopolitical
coming up.
हाँ, मतलब in the sense you have of course there are counter weights which are coming in as well. One over the weekend you had OPEC increasing output.
वो तो गया ना sir.
That's been short term negative.
नहीं मैं बोल रहा हूँ नियर टर्म नेक्स्ट 5 दिन में कोई क्यों नहीं है.
नेक्स्ट 5 दिन में एक ही है ना अपना एमपीसी है ना 6th को है ना.
व्हेन इज द एमपीसी मीट?
6th को है ना. 6 जून को है.
Okay.
So आपका प्रांजल का पहला और सोनू वर्मा का पहला 25 बिप्स आने वाला है
25 basis.
बस आने वाला है
or maybe 50.
और मे बी 50
If it's a 100 basis point, then there's merit even to a 50 basis point cut.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Don't think so. I
Look
don't
at
think
some of
so.
the macroeconomic fast-moving indicators. आपका GST about 2 lakh crore for the month of April, which has come in. But at the same time, you have factory sales which have slowed down in April, which also came in, right? And GDP is coming on a good strong note, 6.5%. Okay, you can easily say that we had 9% plus in FY24, now we are 6.5% or something, which is there. But 6.5% is also the fastest growing economy
in a growth scarce world.
Yeah, it's there. And the only thing which is now playing out is the yields, how yields are going to play out. And I think that's going to determine everything going forward. Means next 2 weeks, I think if you look at closely how the yields are going to move, and especially going to July 9th, and then over the weekend you had Trump coming and talking about 50% tariff on steel and aluminium, which
is चलो अभी ठीक है. I think markets increasingly metals तो लोग बोले थे buying opportunity because the taco trade is into effect. So
yeah, but taco trade has of course it comes back, whatever falls comes back according to taco trade, right? In that sense, but when it falls,
explain what the taco trade is?
Yes, please.
No, I think there is that Donald Trump is. I wouldn't want to use terms like chicken out or whatever, but I think after the initial announcement,
Trump
there is recalibration. Yeah. But I'm just saying, I think there is recalibration, and I would say that is the negotiator that he is. Plus, I don't think like predictable है. हो भी सकता है कि भाई ये टैको टर्म सुन के वो बोलेगा अभी तो मैं टैरिफ डाल रहा हूँ और वापस लूंगा ही नहीं, कुछ भी हो जाए. पर्सनल
there was a reporter which asked him about the taco trade. Ego is a dangerous thing. There's a reporter who asked him on taco trade last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, people are using this as a dip in metals to buy.
Yeah. Means directly we don't have an impact. We have an indirect impact in terms of dumping fears which is coming in. That's the reason metals are down.
And export.
Export we hardly have any significant. Tata Steel का थोड़ा सा है. Chorus का US में है.
And I thought value added products.
And Novelis to the US होता है.
पर value added products का export होता है ना. I was under that impression.
बहुत बड़ा नहीं होगा.
बहुत छोटा है.
I would reckon in the Indian landscape.
We are net importers of value added steel. And that's what the government is trying to do. Means they're putting in more PLI or more incentives for domestic industry to fill that gap so that we don't import value added steel.
Yeah, but people are constructive on metals right now. They are saying that they will use opportunities to buy. Q1, Q2 numbers will start looking very, very good. And for JSW Steel now, that Bhushan thing is kind of resolved. Not resolved, but status quo. So they are allowed to mark those volumes in their volume estimates of 10%. So मोटा मोटी सब चीज़ के लिए ठीक है. इतना बुरा नहीं है.
No, that's true. Means I agree with you what you're saying on that part of it.
Thank you, sir.
What's happening on IT?
No banks today.
No banks, IT.
PSU banks में थोड़ा कर सकते हैं actually में, क्योंकि बहुत active है pocket आज.
But
that's the only index which is
so PSU banks will take an exception because we'll not talk only about BFSI all the time, but PSU banks.
PSU banks बताओ. PSU banks में I was bullish on PSU bank, but he was cautious.
Yeah, I still am. I mean, this makes no sense to me as to why it's perked up 2%. So
why are you bullish?
I'll allow.
No. I'm coming from a point of view. Okay, they are the most conservative in lending, and
are they
conservative in lending for me? Means मैंने एक्सिस का देखा हुआ lending practices बॉस, और ICICI का भी देखा है और SGFC का भी देखा है, एंड उसके कंपैरेटिव मैंने PSU बैंक का भी देखा है.
तो ग्रॉस एनपीएस किसके ज्यादा होते हैं, मैं ये पूछ रहा हूँ. सिंपल सवाल.
एसेट क्वालिटी अभी क्लीन अप हो चुका है यार PSU बैंक में. अब
सर आप बोल रहे हो दे आर द मोस्ट कंजर्वेटिव, तो मैं पूछ रहा हूँ लास्ट 3 साल में जीएनपीएस, मतलब पूछ रहा हूँ, सवाल है, मुझे पता नहीं है.
बताओ
ये तो सवाल है. ग्रॉस एनपीएस
लास्ट 3 साल में हाउ GNPAs have moved for them.
So what Sajeet sir is saying is that there is an improvement in GNPA अब स्कोप कितना है इम्प्रूवमेंट और प्राइवेट सेक्टर में उतना कम है।
पूरा मार्केट ही इसके बारे में है कि इम्प्रूवमेंट हो रहा है और वी आर डिस्काउंटिंग द फ्यूचर।
There's a difference of opinion, sir.
सजीत आर्गुमेंट ये करेगा,
I don't believe that
कि
you are the
आपने
most
2-3
conservative.
प्राइवेट बैंक देख लिए बड़े वाले, उनमें भी इतना प्रॉब्लम आ गया है, तो आप पीएसयू बैंक को क्यों डाल दे रहे हो?
बिल्कुल, वही तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ आपको।
बताओ एक पीएसयू बैंक में जिसमें इतनी बड़ी चीजें हुई है,
हाँ,
जिसके एमडी ने 9 महीने पहले शेयर्स बेच दिए, बताओ
वो ये ऐसा।
I'm joking about it.
No,
but-
PSU banks aren't allowed, MDs are not allowed to own. Stop, first.
No, but from an asset quality point of view, I think it's relatively better than what it was 5 years back, or much better than what it was 5 years
No,
back.
sir, that
I
is
agree.
no doubt.
That is
But
no
that
doubt.
story
Then-
has played out. The re-rating has also played out, sir. That's my.
Okay,
that's my
let's look at the
opinion.
re-rating part of it. You normally look at a benchmark of price to book, right? That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
कितना कहाँ से कहाँ तक पहुँचा? और
But asset quality is not the only metric
No,
that drives
price
price
to
to
book,
book.
price to
It's
book.
also growth,
Huh.
and growth unfortunately is lacking in some of these PSU banks. Now, in relative terms, maybe the last quarter, maybe Q4, growth may have been okay between PSU and private. But
This is a mic.
yeah, so I'm holding it. But otherwise, growth traditionally in private has always been stronger. Operationally, they've always been stronger. Margins have always been better. So I mean, so some of those factors do play out. And
Thank
then
you,
when you look at credit cost,
20
right?
सेकंड का
आप क्या बोलना चाहेंगे? आप क्या बोलना चाहेंगे?
मैंने बोल दिया, मैंने अपना बोल चुका हूँ।
if for example right now there is a positive tailwind from recoveries, if credit costs were to normalize,
Yeah.
you could well see that risk play out. I mean, I'm just making that hypothesis. That's why I feel that the rally has already played out. How much more to go? I mean,
In fact, मेरे हिसाब से, yes, this is a rally, and this is the last. At least this is the only comment from me from
Yes,
beyond BFSI. But watch out for non-banking, right? If the rate cut cycle जो आप बोल रहे हो होने वाला है, प्रांजल सोनल आप बोलते जा रहे हो, उनका एग्जाम्पल साइड
अरे प्रांजल का आप बोल रहे हो, सोनल का मैं बोल रहा हूँ।
अगर वो
आपका
होने
50
वाला
basis points
है,
है।
अगर वो होने
हाँ,
वाला है,
हाँ।
तो NBFCs are a great source, right? Because cost of funding will come down for them. So why not play NBFCs?
you know, there's one more piece that I want to address in this. Bernstein came out with a note with their observation saying that PSBs, which is public sector banks, have lost their mojo in terms of acquiring customers with very, very low cost of funds. They've lost that mojo. This weekend, there was a very interesting development which we all have missed. Canara Bank silently said, zero balance accounts for all my customers. Which likely means what? That they seem to be losing customers in that cohort. Otherwise, why would a bank do that?
And
I have never seen a PSU bank do that.
And let me add to it. ICICI Bank said we are raising customer fees across
Correct.
all
Correct.
accounts.
So it kind of just shows that one is going the profitability way, the other is going, let me get customers at any cost way.
You undercost.
Kind of somewhere it kind of underlines the trends that are playing out. And
ICICI बैंक पैसा चार्ज करेगा?
हाँ, ये आपको नहीं पता था? क्या सर, ऐसे कैसे कर रहे हो?
नहीं पता है।
ये तो मैं बता रहा हूँ कि PSU बैंक्स ये कर रहे हैं।
मतलब क्या चार्ज करेगा?
मतलब हर सर्विस में आपको चार्ज करे। इफेक्टिव जुलाई 1 चार्जेस आर गोइंग टू गो अप एक्चुअली।
वाह।
एंड ऐसा नहीं है कि HDFC नहीं करता है, HDFC करता है। HDFC इज वे अहेड हर चीज में। मतलब आग बंद करो झपकी मारो तो उसके लिए भी
now the customer is used to the tech stack, तो बिना tech stack के लिए चार्ज करो, है ना?
एग्जैक्टली,
वही हो गया
मतलब प्लेटफॉर्म फीस टाइप्स ना बेसिकली।
हाँ, प्लेटफॉर्म फीस होगी ये तो। इंटरेस्टिंग है। ओके, बाय द वे, द अदर सेट ऑफ स्टॉक्स दैट शुड बी इन फोकस शुड बी ड्रोन स्टॉक्स, बिकॉज आई थिंक मेरे हिसाब से
हमारे यहाँ पर इतना है नहीं।
3-4 कंपनी तो है,
2 है, वो भी
आप बताओ कौन सी 2 है?
आइडिया फौज और पारस सौरभत करते हैं। जेंटेक ने एक छोटी कंपनी खरीदी है, पर इट्स नॉट अ ड्रोन प्ले एट दिस मोमेंट।
But it's on its way to becoming a drone play because they are doing anti-drone systems.
Anti-drone systems, yes. So let's talk about anti-drone systems.
Same thing,
Not the no, दोनों अलग अलग हैं।
अरे सर, मतलब
आप रशिया यूक्रेन को लेके आप बोल रहे हो कि ड्रोन प्ले।
मैं बोल रहा हूँ drones and anti-drones both for offense and for defense, both of them will get sold in equal measure, because I think what the current warfare is showing you, Sajeet, is that drones are now the biggest play. Yes, you will need a lot of other equipment, but maybe increasingly wars will be fought with drones.
So let me break it up for you in 2 things. One, yes, drones are going to be the next play for future.
I think
warfare.
they are already the current play.
We have seen that in India, Pakistan. We have seen that in Israel and Palestine.
We've seen that
and
in Russia, Ukraine.
Hamas and Russia, Ukraine. Now, what now the shift will be towards more about air defense systems.
Yes.
Right? That's what we are talking about in that sense. Yes, वहाँ पर अगर हम देखेंगे तो we have BEL, we have L&T, we have Tatas which are there. We have Bharat Dynamics which is coming into play. We have TCS which provides some bit of software development in that sense, providing an integrated network. You have a lot of fiber companies which provide networks across the thing. So वो play अलग आता है उसमें. So when we say drone warfare, yes, break it down into hardware of drones, where we are today net importers, except there has been a couple of technology transfers which have happened, like Adani is building some drones. We have DRDO which is still in the process of doing an indigenous drone system which is there, which will be built by either Bharat Dynamics or BEL बनाएगा उसको आगे जाके. तो वो सब है, that is there. But what we are trying to say when we say drone warfare is the air defense systems which we are talking about. But it's very interesting how roughly $10 billion worth of aircraft were destroyed by Ukraine by this drone attack, and they were not able to find. And it seems that it was smuggled in trucks.
Yeah, so drone stock should be in focus, and I think what the businesses that they will garner, both for defense and offense, would be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Paras is doing both, drones and anti-drone. Similarly, Zentech is trying to do both. Similarly, maybe IdeaForge might be doing both. I don't know. And Adani, I'm sure, might be doing both as well, right? So therefore,
they're doing drone systems. Air defense systems उतना नहीं है अभी.
चलो ठीक है, but
they're
whoever
doing
is doing whatever.
kamikaze drones and stuff like that.
Those are imported and made in
part
India.
of the annual report which I read. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So my limited point being, it's a set of companies that you can't disregard now.
No, we can't. Means defense.
What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, if traditionally the focus was on companies which can make the best fighter jets or key order books, मेरे हिसाब से increasingly drone, anti-drone and newer warfare equipment manufacturers which are based out of India come into focus.
True.
Big time.
उसमें एक चीज जो मेरे को लगता है जो होगा अगले एक साल में 12 months में जो होगा, today the defense pack which includes all this is part of the capital goods sector which is there. It's way below in the pecking order. I think this would get hived off from different capital goods and become a different sector as a whole, so that money inflows and allotments come in. Because as you know, fund houses are restricted by sector allotment and then company allotment, right? So
No, but Motilal Oswal and HDFC have a defense fund now.
that's a defense fund. I'm talking of foreign investors. I'm talking investors from a point of view from there. आपका defense fund है, yes, आप concentrate उसमें करोगे. But when you're looking at, they're not the only one who's going to put
That's
money
true.
into it, right? It's foreign inflows or mutual funds, separate mutual funds which are going to do it. जिनका allocation होता है sector wise and then sector के अंदर stock wise. So that's going to something which is.
Chaliye, let's take questions.
Yes. Do you want to talk about mid cap or we do it tomorrow?
We should do it tomorrow if we can.
Yeah, we should do it
We
tomorrow.
are doing it on TV also tomorrow.
Oh, ठीक है, then we'll do it tomorrow. Then.
Guys, before that, please hit like,
Yeah.
subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you.
Questions.
We don't have questions yet. So.
अब मिजुल इस बिहार डाल दिया उसने.
Okay.
Texmaco Rail and Indigo make sense to buy currently. Texmaco railway capex is there, right? But उतना नहीं है. I mean, we have been seeing some slowdown there.
Yes, there has been a slowdown for sure. The question
Why
only
is that?
Well, I think एक तो receivables में भी थोड़े issues आ गए, और दूसरा मेरे हिसाब से ये अगर आप देखो पॉलिसी भी वो थोड़ा आफ्टर दैट बिलीव दैट रेलवेज में हर साल इतना कैपेक्स होता रहेगा, देयर इज अ बिट ऑफ अ पॉज दैट केम इन लास्ट ईयर.
वो जो रन अप था कि 10 लाख करोड़ का कैपेक्स आने वाला है, राइट? मींस रेलवेज में
मैं और अच्छा हो भी सकता है सर, नेक्स्ट
नहीं
बजट में हो सकता है.
नहीं नेक्स्ट नहीं, मतलब कि ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ 5 years 10.
No, so I'm guessing, my guess is that if there are these three companies which have expanded capacities, Jupiter, Titagarh, Texmaco, and I recently, like 3 or 4 last week, We heard of one more company, Shyam Metallics,
Shyam Metallics.
setting up a railway manufacturing company. So I'm guessing the government has given visibility to these guys that this is the kind of ordering that we will do for wagons. And therefore, the plans must be large, because I'm guessing at some point of time, much like defense, India wants to become an exporter. And you can only become an exporter when you have such large capacities. वो economies of scale आए. वो economies of scale अभी इनमें आ जाएंगी. And बाद में they'll be able to sell everywhere else.
I was listening to Ashwini Vaishnav, who's the railway minister, and he was telling that in the last 4 or 5 years, there's a certain number he mentioned of how many wagons have been replaced, and we in the next 2 to 3 years, the remaining would be replaced as well. So that visibility is, I think, is already in place for them. The question is that can it go further, right? In that sense.
Yeah. So I mean, वही है कि अभी now whether the cash flows improve and whether further ordering happens, we haven't seen. आपको पता है, आप दोनों ने देखा होगा, बीच में इसने इतना वैगन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का एक ऑर्डर आया, बाद में एक ऑर्डर आया, बाद में एक ऑर्डर आया,
suddenly लल हो गया.
I think it'll restart.
We're
talking to Umesh Chaudhary tomorrow, so we'll get to know.
Yeah, the other thing also that I feel is that there was a sharp increase in the budget in FY22, if I recall right, FY22 और FY23 के budget के time पे. उसके बाद वो number पे growth नहीं आया है.
But वो number बड़ा था.
वो number बहुत बड़ा था, 3 लाख करोड़ के आसपास था. वो number अभी वही level पे रहेगा. That seems to be the perception.
पर उतना delivery भी नहीं हुआ है.
So the focus
नहीं हुआ ना, revenue delivery कहाँ हुआ है?
नहीं हुआ है. हाँ, wait हो रहा है. वो उस पे अभी तक काम करना बाकी है, I think.
देखो इसके रेवेन्यू नंबर्स इतने बुरे नहीं थे इस बार भी, सो दे मेंटेन्ड 1000 करोड़ के आसपास का नंबर क्वार्टरली, टीटागढ़ फॉर एग्जांपल. सो इन सम सेंस द डिलीवरी माइट बी हैपनिंग, बट द जिंग इन द सेक्टर इज गॉन अवे. वो ग्रोथ होना चाहिए. पीपल आर नॉट पेइंग फॉर स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ रेवेन्यूज, बिकॉज स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ रेवेन्यू तो एफएमसीजी में भी है. आपको ग्रोथ चाहिए, जो रेलवे फिलहाल नहीं दिखा रहा है.
इंडिगो
यार, India's premier airline, the only question is that will it keep on seeing that equity sale happening at higher levels? That's the only conundrum.
How much?
पर वो तो यार 8% ही बचा है, so वो तो बिक जाएगा, my sense is.
Yeah, but fairly large market. But tell me one thing, Niraj. It's a erstwhile co-promoter who is selling the stake, right? पहले जब MSCI used to look at, or I'm just talking from a foreign investor's point of view, when MSCI used to look at that foreign promoter stake was not included as part of the free float. Now that promoter stake is coming into it, and this is only perhaps the only airline which is profitable in that sense. Won't it be a liquidity which foreign investors want? Because every time he sells, the foreign free float is increasing.
But curiously, none of the FIIs you only pointed out, Sajeet, participated in the Indigo
exactly.
So that was an
but
interesting
mutual funds
did, yes,
did.
but FIIs
नहीं किया है.
So वो थोड़ा interesting था, but I don't know, I'm constructive, man. मैं Saturday को जा रहा हूँ कहीं पे. Out of all the airlines that might be there, the only option for a convenient time flight was Interglobe. You had no choice but to do Indigo, and I'm not flying Bombay Bangalore, which is arguably the busiest route alongside Bombay Delhi, right? फिर भी the choice was Indigo.
Okay.
They by the way, last thing, Indigo and Navi Mumbai Airport have just signed a deal.
Yeah.
For Indigo being the first airline.
I think they've
of the blocks.
They haven't given out the routes yet, but I think they've already signed the deal for that. MPJN is asking, is it okay to add PSU stocks?
PSU banks नहीं sir.
PSU bank stocks.
Okay. I mean, I think I made myself quite clear. So
Chalo,
I don't think
I have to push in 3 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about fun. What are the kind of business which a foolish can also run?
None.
तो मुश्किल लग रहा है.
No, but I think the essence of his question is कि it doesn't matter कि CEO
कोई भी आए वो बिजनेस अपना चलता रहेगा.
बंदा अच्छा है, चलता रह सकता है यार. फाइट है यार थोड़ा. वो तो हमने मतलब I always thought that McDonald's will never have issues, right? In a country like India, will keep on expanding, and the great leader also. But it went through some issues, right? Amit Jatia is a proven track record, but went through near-term issues. So थोड़ा fight लग रहा है. It's all about the
construction sector. The next Ajit.
नहीं sir, before I come to construction. Transrail lighting. We have Sanchit Goyal who has asked this question earlier. We spoke to Transrail.
We should drop the interview.
Yes.
Drop the interview, but stock is up 15%. He's sent us a laughing emoji and said that I am happy anyway. but give me your view. So I mean, we spoke, but I thought that.
No, I think my takeaway, my memory of Hersh that interview is that he is doing the same business that others are doing. He's doing it at 12% margin because he's selective about the business. Some of the others are 7-8%, and they have one or two other lines which this one doesn't, and that's why his
So
margins are 12%.
give me a sense of the business they do.
हाँ?
कैसे क्या business करते हैं?
TND. TND is the large portion of his business.
For railways.
पर दूसरे लोग क्या
For
करते हैं?
rail.
नहीं, transmission and distribution तो power sector.
Power sector.
पर दूसरे लोग क्या करते हैं? वो लोग ट्रांसमिशन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के साथ साथ ईपीसी ये वो भी ले लेते हैं. उसमें वो बोल रहा है कि उसमें मार्जिन्स थोड़े कम होते हैं typical. That's what.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really the differentiator which he was speaking about.
And he said, right, that he will grow at 20%, between 15 and 25% for the next 5 years. ऐसा ही कुछ नंबर था.
काफी certainty है growth का net. काफी certainty.
Valuations मुझे याद नहीं है.
हाँ, so maybe you can do the valuations yourself. It's
yeah.
not going to be hard because the way we asked him questions, I am sure that you will be able to derive a decent valuation very easily.
Yeah.
By just
so Excel पे
listening.
FY25 डालो, बाद में 5 साल वो करो, बाद में discount करो to present value, become an analyst yourself.
Not hard to do.
Construction sector.
क्या सर?
क्या लग रहा है? Is it good?
या पता नहीं है. देखो, फॉर एग्जांपल मैं अभी कल ही देख रहा था गरुड़ा कंस्ट्रक्शन करके एक फर्म थी, राइट? उत्पल शेत, नो लेस, bought at 102, 110, 129. The stock is languishing, right? KNR got banned out of contracts. Stock is languishing. Difficult है यार बोलना. I mean, I don't particularly ever.
But the largest contributor to GDP this time has been construction. By the way, industrial में construction has done the best.
Industrial में, but otherwise construction growth was if
Around 10%.
hang on.
10 to 11% था.
Q4 में GDP की बात कर रहे हो ना तुम?
हाँ.
But it's not reflecting in the forward earnings, huh? By the way.
Yeah, it may not be reflecting. I'm just saying that construction activity has picked up.
I was looking at the construction companies, and it's not reflecting there. Construction companies are.
Wait a minute.
Are laggard.
Yeah, construction was 10.8% within GVA.
GVA.
Strong growth था वहाँ पे.
पता नहीं. Sorry guys, I'll have to bounce.
चलो.
You guys continue.
Done.
No problem, sir.
No problem.
Thank you.
Shrika Reddy has he wants to know about consumption and FMCG themes aren't playing well in the current scenario, but once disposable income increases due to tax savings, GST reduction, will they perform well in future?
Well, they could, but I would feel that you should be conscious with regard to which ones are able to grow, because they will likely, and this is the funny part about consumption and FMCG, that the ones which are growing, and sir, please correct me if I'm wrong, are doing much better, and the ones which are not are just languishing.
So there are a couple of themes which are playing out, right? In FMCG, though volume growth is not coming through, value growth is coming through, and that's primarily because many of the companies are now pushing premium products in smaller SKUs, means in smaller packs basically, when I say smaller SKUs. And that's the reason why we are seeing value growth coming in and not volume growth coming in. And it's going to sustain that way. एक time था कि we used to look at the numbers and say, oh, 10% volume growth or 7% volume growth, and the remaining is the value growth, and companies are not able to push. But now it's the other way around. For the last 4 quarters, we are seeing that value growth coming in. That's also because the fact that raw material prices have also gone up, and so they're pushing out prices. But still the theme is urban consumption or urban demand spends are not increasing.
Yes.
Right? That's still a worry actually.
And rural is yet to pick up because the monsoon has just come. So you want that monsoon onset to happen. You want to make sure that monsoon fully settles in. We are guaranteed of a good monsoon before rural will actually.
Yeah, means rural has been growing, but it's not that blockbuster double digit growth.
और time भी लगेगा ना, पैसा अंदर जाने के लिए time लगेगा.
So that's something which is there. Of course, tax cuts, if GST rates are rationalized, as I think the finance minister or finance ministry was pointing out, that maybe in the next GST meeting, council meeting, or after that, there will be some rationalization of GST rates that comes in. Then there's more income which is coming in the hands of people, especially in urban, and that may spur some kind of consumption which is there. So yes, there is always that optimistic scenario which is being built out, but people are now conserving cash, and if there is a saving which is coming in, a large part of it that is going into markets as well, equity markets,
Yeah.
in form of SIPs or any other funds which is there. So that, you need to look at that savings growth, household savings, how household savings is growing, and that's a large chunk of the household saving is now getting channelized into capital markets instead of going to banks as deposits and term deposits.
Yes.
So, Vigin Dharan are the promoters of KPI Green KP Group, known for good corporate governance.
I don't have a view, sorry.
No, I don't have a concrete view. I know KPI Green. These numbers आए थे ना इसके? अभी तो number हमने, I think we did.
The guidance is very strong. Very strong. They spoke about 28 to 32% margin, if I recall right. He said that margins is not something that is really what he's focusing on. He's focusing on top line growth. Margins 2% here or there, he's willing to give up on. That's what I recall of the conversation. But yes, and delivery, frankly, for this cohort has been very strong, right? Because the demand has been that strong. So they're sitting on strong order books, and therefore delivery is strong.
There is one on Vigin Dharan on hotel sector. Should we buy high-end hotels or budget hotels like Lemon Tree? It's a little tricky. Means travel and tourism has been a hit in Q1. I don't know whether it's going to return in Q2 or not. And so I think the first half would be little muted for the resorts and those high-end hotels are concerned. The business travel is continuing as we speak. So, and I still don't get rooms or other stuff which is in key cities there. So yes, second means Lemon Tree, which is into it's not into a premium, but I think they are in the premium, not in the luxury segment. I think they are doing much better. But as Niraj was telling us, right, that the average occupancy was 60-65% for in a Taj or something, right? Or in a luxury hotel or something.
No, he went to JW and he said that the occupancy seems to have fallen a little bit in the last month or two. So keep your eye out on that. But I mean, so between me and you, Sajeet, so I thought that I'll just point out that generally hotels with a large brand name are able to leverage more with regard to margins. So like a Marriott globally has done so well because they do the capex light model. Not necessarily that a Lemon Tree does that, not necessarily that some of the other hotels do that. So you want to play that theme as well.
You need to look at how Indian hotels played that theme and how it's going to play out for other companies, right? Indian hotels now has a large chunk of their profitability coming in from management contracts or managing assets. Let me put it this way: they don't have their own properties; they manage those assets, and so the EBITDA level and the EBITDA margin and the PAT is a large, sizable amount is coming from that. ITC Hotel is moving towards that kind of model. Where they have already tied up for that, and over the next 2 to 3 years actually, that flow will come into ITC's balance sheet or P&L basically. We have, I think today, a company listing Skolos, Bangalore,
Stocks,
the Leela. They are also moving towards that kind of thing, but it's very early days for them. They are also looking at some asset light model which is coming in. So in India, people are not spending money on setting up hotels on their own, because earlier क्या होता था कि the cost was very high for putting a one key means one room in that. So they're tying up with local developers or others to to tie up and do a management contract in these hotels and all, and growing that pie of their business on the EBITDA and the P&L level, and that's what is now happening. I don't know. Lemon Tree also does some bit of it, right? I mean, I don't. I
was of the view that Lemon Tree only does capex.
Capex, right?
Yeah, capex heavy.
So
that was my understanding.
So look at those models, and then you see, अगर आपका capex model बहुत high है ना, तो आपको profitability और returns उतने means profitability होगी, but returns will not be as high as what you're benchmarking to an Indian hotel or maybe going forward ITC hotels or something. There is Coal India subsidiary companies planning for IPO. Is IPO market back. Suraj
For
Jain.
sure.
Yes, IPO market is now coming back, but we are not seeing the kind of demand that we were seeing. आज जो 2 IPOs list हुए हैं, Aegis Vopak, which is into gas storage and logistics basically, and Scholars, which is the Leela. They haven't done well today.
No, they haven't.
Muted listing which is there. I think if I'm not wrong, Aegis is up only 2.5, 3%, which when I last saw the stock which is there. So yes, it is back, but we are not seeing. We're seeing retail coming back. HNI उतने आए नहीं अभी तक, क्योंकि institution भी very slow है. They're not they're coming but not as much. So the gains which you're looking at for IPOs is still far away. I think. Can we manipulate India VIX? No, you cannot.
Very tough.
It's very tough. VIX is a product of how volatility is playing out in the options market, whether it's call or put. You'll have to manipulate the calls or the put contracts to manipulate the VIX. So you cannot manipulate VIX basically. Vaishali is asking a question. Any view on stocks that have moved up after the correction and are consolidating right now? Should we expect a correction in them, or they are just pausing before continuing their momentum? Vaishali, if you can give us some idea of which stocks you are looking at, then it will be good. But
yeah, which basket? Even that helps.
That helps, right? It's a very generic question which is there. But मोटा अगर बात करें तो mid cap or small cap has been outperforming the benchmarks. Even today, small cap 250 is up 0.75% and mid cap 150 is up 0.5%, nearly 0.5%. So these two baskets, which account for really 400 stocks out of the top 500, are outperforming the benchmark. And you know the why it's happening, because Nifty in Q4 earnings EPS growth was only 2.7, and for the full FY25 Nifty EPS went up by just 1%. And if you look at the estimates which are there, available consensus estimate for Nifty 50, they're looking at the EPS growth of nearly 5% in FY25, which is way low. And at that 5% growth, we're looking at Nifty already at 20-21 times forward earnings, 12-month forward earnings. So, ये बहुत ही data center. You have any?
I don't actually.
And there are a lot of real estate companies which are running on.
Anantraj is one of them.
Anantraj is there, and others.
Yeah, but I frankly I haven't looked at it in detail, so I don't want to comment on something I haven't looked at. Suzlon, yeah. So we did the interview.
Yeah, you did this JP Salsani, na?
Yeah, that was a very interesting interview. He was extremely bullish with regard to India and the Indian capacity ramp up that's happening. He believes that maybe 8 gigawatts of execution will happen in FY26, which is extremely strong.
8 gigawatts means 8,000 megawatt of execution.
Yeah, so he's seeing very strong trends within this landscape, and he sees that there is a requirement for that execution. So it's not just execution which is playing out. He's saying that Suzlon is capable of catering to nearly 4.5 gigawatts today, but they've done just about 1.5 to 2 gigawatts. They're planning to ramp up. So they're planning a phased ramp up basically. Because one is that you set up capacity, you can't run at full capacity all the time, stuff like that. But more than that, it's also about getting the right orders and executing in the right manner. So they have a good order book of around 6 odd gigawatts, and they are saying that we will, 4.5 odd gigawatts, and they are saying that we will continue to ramp up and work on that, and we will execute as well. So from the 1.6 gigawatts that they've executed in FY25, they plan to execute around 2.5 in FY26. So very strong ramp up, 60%. So they are expecting 60% top line, 60% EBITDA, 60% PAT on that number.
So
in FY26.
And what about the realization? It's going to be better than what we saw? Because Inox Wind, I saw the numbers. It was little disappointing because they had projected 800 megawatt, and and they were able to do only 705, though they maintained 1200 megawatt, guidance FY26.
So realization, what they are saying is that we will rely on one, of course, the execution of the current year, but we will also take care that every contract we win, we also win the O&M for that contract. So it's difficult to kind of quantify realization, because once you've won the contract and then you have an O&M attached to it for the next 10 years, you might not win it at the same ticket price as some of the others. And therefore, I'm not going to get into the realization angle, but this is the strategy which they are developing. And FY26, they are building in 60%, 60%, 60%. Which is extremely strong.
And there's another thing which is coming in, right? In the sense, wind energy requires land.
Yes.
And there is only limited land which has that wind power coming in, basically. So, we've seen that the capacity of individual windmills are also going up, in terms of 3.5 megawatt or 5, going up to 5. So higher megawatt wind turbines are getting, installed or, executed, and that is something which you need to watch out for. And as we do that, in the past, last 10-15 years, how many, wherever the replacements are going to come in, is going to come in for a higher megawatt wind turbines. So that is also something which is important to look at, because yes, we have a target for FY30 which has been set for green energy, but I think these are the things, because the runway for how do you say, the wind is dependent on where all you can put up that.
So the other key piece was that on the exchanges, on the power exchanges, the spread dropped to zero, so you had no premium.
Yes. That happened last week. That happened last week.
And I asked Mr. Chalsani this. So he said that yes, it did drop to zero, but it was at a time when you had enough solar available. Once solar availability diminishes, which is between maybe 5 p.m. in the evening to around 10-11 p.m. at night, or rather 7 to 11, and we'll drop, please, I'll request Pridhur to drop the interview as well. It's an interesting one. So at that time, wind really picks up. So he said offtake there is the key risk. Rather than power price, he said offtake is the key risk. वो offtake का risk बड़ा हो गया है.
बहुत बड़ा हो गया है actually. If you look at one of the reasons why there could be a slowdown, and it's my assumption here, is that the connectivity to the farms, they have to offtake the entire solar and others, right?
Yes.
And we are we haven't moved into a space where battery energy storage systems have come into place and other stuff which is there. So when in a non-peak hours, or you can store the energy and release it during peak hours to go. So during daytime you have solar, which is the biggest source, and during evening times is the wind speed when normally it comes in, and that gives you the wind power which is there. And interestingly, I was just there's an announcement by JBM Auto, and they have a battery energy solar system subsidiary which is there, and they are executing some order for SJVN.
Okay.
In battery energy solar system, and they think that they have a target of 3 gigawatt hours. SJVN के लिए 1 gigawatt hour का कुछ execution कर रहे हैं वो battery energy solar system. So that announcement came on the exchanges in the morning. So
yeah, I read that as well. Yes.
So there's one final question coming for you, Tejas Gambhir, Aptus Value Housing Finance.
So growth is very strong, if I recall, and I'm just talking from whatever I can recall. 25% on AUM, 25% on top line, bottom line. So it's a decent growth, but you have to also look at risk reward. The price at which this one trades at, if I recall right, is more than 3.5x price to book. Maybe 1 year forward it will be between 3 and 3.5 times price to book. So certainly not cheap, but at the same time it's a very strong performance. 25% top line as well as AUM as well as PAT. So
what will be the impact on housing finance companies when rates start falling again?
So
we already seen 50 bips. We are looking at another 50 bips at a minimum, basically.
One of two scenarios will play out. One is that you will have a hit, and you'll have to look at the composition of the book. How much of it is floating, how much of it is fixed. A lot of times for housing financiers, it's a floating book. So it re-rates along with the repo that you have. So if the repo falls by 25 bips, then your entire loan book yield falls by 25 bips. And therefore, you don't have much of an impact per se. But there will be certain housing financiers in the niche space where you will see their fixed loan book higher than the floating loan book. They will enjoy the advantage because cost of funds will likely fall, and therefore they will enjoy the advantage of some amount of margin increase. On the incremental book, what one needs to look for is how they are disbursing and whether they can hold on to the yield at which they have been disbursing for all this time. My sense is they won't be able to do that because there's a lot of competition in the space in any case.
Do you
Housing
think a
finance is
revival in
hot
a
space.
housing loan market or mortgage market, people buying more houses just because the rates are falling, or is it a function of more cash in hand, or that kind of thing? Means I was reading somewhere that markets have been sluggish, and that's the reason why some of the luxury houses are not getting sold. We just saw Canara put out a report saying that the inventory for super luxury has gone up by X percentage in this last month because, and that's the biggest since COVID actually. That's what it was talking about. So it's the correlation to how markets are not doing well, or they've been stagnant.
If you perceive yourself to be rich, you will go out and you will buy these properties. That's generally what people say. So that is for sure linked. I don't know how much of it is linked to a loan rate which is already at 9%. Right? If you're already at 9% on a loan rate yield curve, see, if you're 10 or 11 and you're coming down to 9, it makes a difference. But if you're 9 and you're coming down to 8.5 or 8.25, it might play, but I'm just not sure how large that play will be.
Have we done an interview with Dynamatics Technologies? I think once, no?
That I can, sorry, but
we can check, Daksh, we can check if there is one, we will drop that interview in the message board so that you can have a look at it. Roshan has a question on R Infra. Is R Infra the next bet now after R-Par? I have no idea on that. We've stopped tracking that company after what happened. I mean, after they've sold most of the businesses and they've trying to clean up the businesses, I know that much. But I haven't been tracking that company actively. Web of Said has a question on dividend paying stocks like GAIL, SAIL, Coal India, Vedanta.
Yeah, so they may be dividend paying, and I read that question. They may be dividend paying, they may be high compounding also, but also understand they're highly cyclical. They are linked to a lot of factors, like a Vedanta has a lot of debt. The demerger is going to be the one big piece that investors are
getting delayed by a bit, right? In that sense.
And metal prices are something that you will see active linkages to. Coal India is actively linked to how hot the summer is. This time that there was a truncated summer, so maybe that impacts the numbers of Coal India to a certain extent. There's value unlocking obviously happening, that may be positive. It does around 50,000 crore of free cash flow every year. It does dividend distribution around 25 to 30,000 crore on a market cap of around 2.5 lakh crore. So decent amount of dividend that distributes as well.
Yeah.
So some things.
Just on Coal India, I think we had a question on two of his subsidiaries listing, and I think there's the smaller subsidiaries of Coal India which they're trying to list. One is Bharat Coking Coal, and another is a subsidiary which looks into planning of coal mines and other stuff. So yeah, it's a DRHP which is there. My only sense is that I was looking at Bharat Coking Coal, and the value of the company was coming to nearly $1 billion, which is hardly any given the fact that Coal India's market cap is 2.4 lakh crores or something. So
yeah, I want to flag off one thing, right? And we'll end it with this, sir, because we're out of time. But one thing that I want to flag off. So my father-in-law actually got an advertisement on his phone on Instagram saying that with Sanjeev Bhasin's photo, National Stock Exchange's logo, saying that start your investing journey, join our free WhatsApp group. You'll be worth 5 crore rupees by 2026.
Beware of such things.
Please take care. Please beware, because these things with AI have become extremely easy to tap into. I in fact have a video on my phone right now
Of
where
your-
Nirmala Sitharaman
Huh.
is talking with Shaktikanta Das
Huh.
and saying that this new scheme that we are launching is going to double your money in 21 days, right? And
Yeah,
it's
those are-
Nirmala
yeah.
Sitharaman actually saying it. So please beware,
No,
guys.
It's an imitation.
Yes.
I mean, it's a.
Please don't believe this.
It's, what's the word for that? It's a deep fake.
Deep fake, correct? Yes.
Deep fake.
It's a deep fake.
Which is floating around in all the social medias, Facebook, and other channels. So be careful of all those things. Coming in on your news feed or on your social media feed. Do your own diligence. None of them, all of them are respected people. None of them talk about this kind of stuff.
Every citizen of India invests 21,000 rupees in this project will receive
Which is-
15 lakh rupees in the first month.
All the deep fake.
टाइम्स नाउ पे है और राजदीप सर देसाई है टाइम्स नाउ पे और निर्मला सीतारमन
टाइम्स नाउ में राजदीप है ही नहीं ना.
मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ आपको कि these things are playing out, so please be careful, guys.
Yes, please be careful about deep fakes and all the social media and WhatsApps that you get. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
So we end with markets almost flat actually.
Yeah, not a bad day. Very good recovery.
Yeah.
चले सर भागे बहुत मेहनत
वो बना के रखा हुआ है.
क्या?
Sting.